Alright, welcome to the channel. If you're new here, make sure you give me a like and subscribe. Comment once you get done watching the video and let me know your thoughts. I am not a huge sports commentator type of channel, but occasionally I will dabble into sports because, it's part of most men's lives, especially those of us who played football or any other sport that we're close to. And I'm just going to hop straight into it. As a lifelong Falcons fan, as you can see, a native Georgian, born in Atlanta, raised in suburban Atlanta. I'm not emotionally invested into the Falcons this year. I love the Falcons. I'm never going to jump ship. I'm never going to go support another team. My dad has been a season ticket holder for years, so I've been going to the games that he doesn't want to go to for many years. He's not a season ticket holder this year, but irrespective of that, this season right here is more of the same. We're not surprised to see what's going on, those of us that know the Falcons. But there were higher expectations than what we're seeing unfold thus far. And so many people are screaming, oh, fire Raheem, fire Raheem. Zach Robinson got to go. And I'm just like, okay, fire him and do what? Because this is nothing new. I wasn't anticipating the Falcons to go to the Super Bowl this year. But based on the talent that they have, I was expecting them to at least make the playoffs. That would have been an improvement of last year. We're on pace as a team to decline from last year with a superior athlete at quarterback. Now, I'm making this video on Monday, the 17th of November. And it's important that I document when I'm making this video because as of yesterday, after the game, during the game, Michael Penix suffered an injury. I think his leg got rolled up, and the reports are out saying that there is some damage to his ACL. That is always devastating news because ACL, of course, is the anterior cruciate ligament, and those are some of the nastiest injuries that athletes can suffer from, and that means he's going to most likely be out for the season if there is significant enough damage to his ACL, and we're going to be stuck with Kirk Cousins yet again. And I don't think that Kirk Cousins is going to be able to magically turn the season around. We know what Kirk Cousins is capable of. We've made it through the most difficult stretch of the season as far as our opponents are concerned. And we'll just have to wait and see how many more wins we can rack up. We're 3-7 right now. And the sad part of this whole ordeal of this season is the Falcons are capable of winning more games. They are capable of being a much better team than their record indicates. I mean, you got Drake London. Michael Penix literally referred to him as a big bully receiver. One of the best and most dominant receivers in the game. He got hurt yesterday. You got one of the most dynamic running back combinations in the game with Tyler Algier and Bijan Robinson. Bijan Robinson is being talked about as being literally one of the best running backs in the NFL right now, right? He's very dynamic. He can catch the ball really well. You can put him in the slot. I mean, he's a very dangerous running back for opposing defenses, right? Kyle Pitts, big body tight end. He's been kind of inconsistent, but when he's clicking, he's clicking. The offensive line has done a relatively decent job. The defense, in my opinion, is not to blame either. And at the end of the day, like I said, Raheem, they fired Jimmy Lake at defensive coordinator. They got Zach Robinson as the OC. Olbrich, however you say his name, is the new defensive coordinator. And if you look at the games that the Falcons have lost, when you look at the games they lost against Tampa Bay, that was a special teams issue, right? Younghoe Koo couldn't kick the field goal to get us into overtime. Brought in a new kicker. He stunk it up. Now we got another one named Gonzalez. We beat the Redskins, a.k.a. the Commanders. They're always going to be the Redskins to me. I can't stand that woke crap. We beat the Bills at home. We beat Josh Allen at home, right? Then you lose to the San Francisco 49ers on the road, which was a very winnable game. You lose to the Miami Dolphins, which is just disgusting. You got blown out, shut out by Carolina the first time, 30-0. We just lost to Carolina again yesterday. We lost to Indianapolis in overtime. We lost to the New England Patriots by like a point or two. So there were several very winnable games. And if those three games that they had the potential to win, specifically New England and Tampa and the who was that we I just talked about? Oh, yesterday the Panthers. The Falcons would actually be what 6-4. What is that? Let me see. 3 + 3 = 6 minus 3. 3 + 7 is 10. Yeah, we would be 6-4. I had to do a little math. I'm sorry. We would be 6-4, which would mean we would be in the playoff hunt, which would be an improvement of where we were at this time last year. And I just want to talk about how the Atlanta Falcons do not have a culture of winning, right? And it starts at the top. Now, we have Arthur Blank, who is our owner, and we have seen some, mixed results as Arthur Blank is our owner. I personally think he's better than Rankin Smith, right? We saw him get his dream stadium, the Mercedes-Benz, stadium, which is one of the most dynamic and just, I would say, creative. The architecture is very creative. It's one of the most dynamic and interesting stadiums in the country. I've only been to one stadium outside of Atlanta, and that's the Vegas Stadium. I think it's called Allegiant Stadium or something like that. I watched the Falcons when we played the Raiders last year, and we barely beat them then, right? And Arthur Blank's a good guy. He's the co-founder of Home Depot with his friend Bernie Marcus, who passed away not too long ago, right? We've had some great success under Arthur Blank, but we've had more losing seasons than winning seasons. That's a fact. We got Mr. Terry Fontenot as our manager. I mean, I'm not a huge fan of him, but at the end of the day, man, he's only been in for a few years, and guess what? We had another guy before Fontenot named Thomas Dimitroff, and in my opinion, that's pretty much a lateral, move as far as scouting talent and bringing in good talent. I mean, we've had great players up under, Thomas Dimitroff, and we've had great players up under, Terry Fontenot so far. It's a completely different team than our last team that went to the Super Bowl, which was 2016's team with Matt Ryan and Julio and Austin Hooper, right? Those guys, we've got some pretty decent players to replace all those guys, But this is obviously not the 2016 caliber of talent, but it's not that far off. The defense has certainly not been trash. We actually had Dan Quinn as our head coach, and there have been others, right? We had Arthur Smith as our most recent coach before they brought in Raheem the Dream. Dan Quinn got us to a Super Bowl, right? And, of course, he got fired after, he kind of fell off. The team just kind of went down after the Super Bowl. And it's hard to maintain a Super Bowl championship level team year in and year out. It's just not sustainable in a league like the NFL because there's a lot of turnover. Players retire, players get hurt, and they never come back the same. You only got so much money to go around, right? Under the Arthur Blank era, we saw Michael Vick come in, one of the most electrifying players to ever grace the NFL field at that time. I'm a huge fan of Michael Vick. And tragically, he made some bad decisions. And, I think it should have ended a little bit differently. But that's another conversation for another day. Not condoning dog fighting, but some things could have been worked out, if you know what I'm saying. I don't know why his cousins did him like that. But irrespective of that, Michael Vick, when he came in, it brought fans in the stands, or as they say, fannies in seats. Everybody wanted to see Michael Vick. We had one of the most reliable kickers in the NFL, played until he was in his 40s. Matt Bryant, he had a golden leg, right? They used to call him Mr. Reliable, right? Mr. Automatic, one of the best kickers in the NFL, right? Very, very consistent. Good, strong leg. Won us a lot of games with that leg, right? Shout out to Matt Bryant, right? And then, of course, our most, best Falcons player of all time, Matt Ryan. A lot of people didn't give Matt Ryan the credit he deserved, but Matt Ryan was the best Falcon to ever put the uniform on. Him and Deion Sanders were probably the two most, Deion was probably one of the more electrifying athletes we've ever had, but Matt Ryan was the most reliable player we've ever had. Great quarterback. The 2016 Super Bowl, that's a whole other story for another day. Everybody's talked about that for years. The Falcons are always reminded how we stunk it up. I think it was a lot more going on than people want to talk about, but that's another story for another day. And then, of course, there's the legendary Julio Jones And I hate that him and Matt Ryan couldn't get no rings, man. They both deserved at least one Super Bowl ring in their career, man. It's devastating that those two guys put in all that work and stayed down with the Falcons all those years. And of course, Julio, he didn't retire a Falcon. He went to the Tennessee Titans and I think down to Tampa. And, you know, shout out to Julio, man. Great dude. CJ Stroud. The reason I got CJ Stroud on this clip is because there's a lot of talk about Michael Penix. Oh, he's a rookie. Oh, he can't just go in there and make it to the playoffs on his first season. CJ Stroud did it. And this is, like I said, a lot of people talk about the coaching. Yes, it is coaching. Don't get it twisted. On a micro level, it is definitely coaching. And like the old saying goes, it's not the equipment, it's the operator. You got the talent there. Another one, Jaden Daniels, rookie season, went to the playoffs, right? You got the talent. That's why so many of us Falcons fans are upset, because you got the talent. You got the tools to get the job done. I'm a landscaper by trade, and we oftentimes make fun of people that don't know how to drive the Bobcat or use a weed eater the right way. We'll say it's not the equipment, it's the operator. And that's exactly what's going on with the Falcons. It's the operators. When we had Kyle Shanahan, we had such an explosive offense. I think that during 2016, they said the Falcons had the 5th most explosive offense in the NFL history. That was back then. I don't know what the record is now. But back then, we had one of the most dynamic and creative offenses. Tevin Coleman, Devontae Freeman, Matt Ryan, Julio Jones, Austin Hooper. Man, it was off the chain. We loved it. We were spoiled rotten as Falcons fans, right? But look, I mean, you look at some of these franchises, and I'm going to wrap the video up real shortly. You look at the Pittsburgh Steelers, man, you know, they find a way to maintain greatness. They don't win the Super Bowl every year. They ain't been to the Super Bowl for several years. But, and I think Mike Tomlin may be on his way out at some point, but they're a winning institution. The Los Angeles Dodgers in baseball, they're a winning institution, right? You look at the New England Patriots, they're a winning institution. They went through their ugly phase over the past few years because, of course, the Tom Brady era is over. He's retired. He went to Tampa Bay, won a Super Bowl with Tampa Bay. 6 rings with New England, right? They now look at the New England Patriots now. Not saying they're going to go to the Super Bowl, but they're back in playoff contention after just 3 seasons of being in the dirt. You can just stay right here in the state of Georgia. The Atlanta Braves, right up the road in Cobb County. 2 championships as the Atlanta Braves. Right? Once in the 90s, once in 2021, just 4 years ago. Right? Same state, different sport, college football, Georgia Bulldogs. And they've been a winning institution. They just weren't making it to the big game with Mark Rich, and they brought in Kirby Smart. 2 championships in the last 5 years. That's pretty darn good. And they look like they could win this year the way they're playing. Right? You look at the Bucks. They got 2 Super Bowl wins, and they're one of the only 2. I'm sorry. They're one of the few franchises in the NFL that have won a Super Bowl every time they went. They've been twice, won it twice, and they're in our division. Everybody wrote Baker Mayfield off. Look at what he's doing, straight balling. The Bucks gonna win the division, no doubt about it. We ain't even got to talk about the Boston Celtics. These are winning institutions. These are well-oiled machines that know how to win. They know how to reload every offseason. They're scouting for better talent. They got good managers. They got good coaches. They are a well-oiled machine from the rooter to the tutor, as they say in the country. Philadelphia Eagles. I don't care what nobody say. In my opinion, they're the team to beat for this year. Who gonna stop them from winning the Super Bowl this year in the AFC? Right? Denver's looking pretty good. Denver's looking real good. So we'll see how that goes. But these teams know how to win, bro. They got Super Bowl rings, right? And we keep on talking about Raheem and Zach Robinson. Man, look, Zach Robinson ain't great. I'm not a fan, not trying to defend him. But it's deeper than Raheem. It's deeper than Zach Robinson, bro. It's deeper than them. This is an organizational issue. This is a lack of a winning culture. We do not have a winning culture in the Atlanta Falcons franchise, right? And you got to remember, Arthur Blank is in his 80s, so he may be, resistant to change. And he's a real nice guy. And we got to look at the money. Falcons, according to Forbes, worth $6.35 billion. He purchased that team for $545 million way back in 2002. You do the math. Dallas Cowboys, just to give you a little context, the number 1 value team, $13 billion, owned by Jerry Jones since the late 80s. Right? So that's the end of the video. I don't want to go on too much longer. I don't want to make the video too long. Like I said, I just had to hammer home some of the points about people calling for the head of Raheem and Zach. Let's just clean house. And you got to be careful what you ask for. I'm not defending Raheem. I do think he's a bad head coach. Yes, he's been on some Super Bowl teams with the Rams and the Bucks as defensive coordinators, right? He has been a part of winning franchises, which is different from being the head of the winning franchise as far as the head coach, right? And he brings in these guys like these offensive coordinators, defensive coordinators, etc., etc. He's a defensive-minded coach. And like I said, the sad thing about the Falcons is it's not that we're not capable. We just don't have the right operators using the tools that we have at our disposal, and it's a damn shame. And I just want to see great players get the opportunity to maximize their talent. We're not giving Bijan and Drake London, right? Michael Penix is most likely done for the year, and he's injury prone. He suffered several injuries at Washington, so I don't even know if he was the best draft to be our quarterback. I know we had to do something about the Kirk Cousins problem, because they were thinking about the future, and Kirk Cousins is not our future for obvious reasons, right? He's past his prime. He's just not that guy. He has far more years that he's been in the league than he has left. Kirk Cousins is on his way out. You know, Michael Penix got plenty of years left. Drake London these guys are in their 20s. Kyle Pitts, right? Some of our defensive players, Jesse Bates, right? We hate to see a guy like Grady Jarrett go. I would have loved to see him retire as a Falcon, right? Jake Matthews, he's on his way out, right? He's getting old, right? So the potential is there, but is the will to do what we need to do to win there? His other team, Arthur Blank's other team, the Atlanta United, he owned them. They won a championship. But of course, we don't respect the soccer championship the way we would respect the NFL Super Bowl for obvious reasons. But let me know what y'all think. Appreciate y'all watching. I'm just a, disappointed fan. My heart ain't in it no more. Not this year, because I already knew not to get too emotionally invested. Just not worth my blood pressure going up. Like, share, comment. I'll catch up. Peace.